There is a cruel agreement happening above your head, and you can feel it even when you can't name it. The people who already own the system do not need to convince you with arguments. They only need to keep you busy, ashamed, distracted, and just slightly too broke to experiment. That is how capitalism protects its supply of labor while you are busy trying to buy your way into dignity. If you want the honest version, it is not hard to understand. It is hard to admit. This video is going to tell you what primitive capital accumulation really means in human terms, why the lifestyle narrative is designed to trap your future, how the modern consumer machine steals from you without ever touching your wallet directly, and what the actual escape plan looks like when you refuse to keep playing the same role. This is not motivational content. This is a psychological autopsy. You are probably watching this because something inside you feels off. You work, you scroll, you compare, you promise yourself you will start investing soon. You tell yourself you are different from the people who overspend, and then your subscription renews. Your credit card balance quietly grows. Your one last purchase becomes a pattern. You notice you feel tired, even when you technically have enough time to rest. You notice your life is full of noise, but you cannot point to a real asset that moved forward. That feeling is not intuition. It is information your brain has been collecting while your ego keeps rewriting the story. The truth is that money is not only money. Money is time. Money is choice. Money is leverage. And leverage is the thing you were trained to avoid building. Let's start with the most uncomfortable definition. Primitive capital accumulation is not a history lesson for rich people. It is a personal threshold. In plain language, it is the point where your capital stops asking permission from your job. It is when you have enough money placed safely enough that you can live on the income it generates. You are no longer forced to sell 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours every day to earn the right to exist. You do not have to trade your time, your energy, and your dignity for wages. That minimum financial freedom is not always a yacht. It is not always a mansion with a driveway long enough to feel special. If your needs are realistic, the number can look surprisingly human. Imagine keeping your spending low enough that your monthly bills don't require you to perform labor for survival. Imagine living on passive income that covers your cost of living so you can choose what you do next, not just what you can survive. At that point, your week is no longer controlled by your boss's mood. You wake up on Monday and you can read, you can learn, you can build. You can stop pretending that your life is only valuable when it produces. Now here is why the elites agree on something you never heard in school. If everyone becomes financially free, who is going to manufacture, staff, drive, and operate the machine? Who is going to stand in the factory? Who is going to sit in the office? Who is going to deliver packages at night? Who is going to take customer service calls? Who is going to fill the hospitals, teach the classrooms, and do the unglamorous work that keeps society running? The wealth system is not self-sustaining. It needs a constant supply of labor. And labor is easier to control when people are never allowed to accumulate. Not because a law forbids you, not because someone breaks your legs. It's more elegant than that. The control is psychological. It happens through incentives, shame, and constant temptation. The financial system you live inside is a distribution mechanism. It redistributes wealth from people who do not have capital into people who do. That redistribution requires one group to be stuck selling time. It requires another group to keep capital generating more capital. So the system is designed, in practice, to keep you from completing the primitive accumulation process. They do not need to stop you with chains. They need to keep you running in circles until the idea of freedom becomes embarrassing. That brings me to the first hidden lever, consumerism as a propaganda engine. You have been told you can escape the grind by upgrading your life. You have been told that saving is behind. Spending is framed as social proof. Saving is framed as fear. So the message is not work forever. The message is consume now and don't think too hard. You are offered a parade of small, rational purchases that feel harmless. A new phone, new sneakers, a trip that you deserve, a course because you need to catch up, a better car because you finally earned it. You were not threatened, you were seduced. You were fed values that make you behave like an impatient debtor. Look at the way the media talks to you. It tells you money determines happiness. It tells you love requires ownership. It tells you your identity is whatever you can display. You are not a person, you are a brand. Your youth is not a phase to grow through. Your youth is a limited resource that must be consumed like fuel immediately before it disappears. And while you're being trained to believe this, the elites are doing something extremely simple. They are monetizing your insecurity. They are turning your fear of being left behind into profit. Every like, every advertisement, every influencer story, every your best life reel, it all pushes you toward the same behavior. Empty your wallet now so you can remain too weak to accumulate capital later. Here is a micro story many people will recognize because it's their exact pattern. You decide to save a little. You tell yourself, this month I will be serious. Then you see a friend post a new purchase. It's not even a luxury in their mind. It's a normal upgrade. A few minutes later, you feel it in your chest. Not envy as a dramatic emotion, something quieter. Shame. The thought that you are falling behind. Then you justify. You say, I work hard too. You say, I deserve comfort. You say, if I get this now, it will improve my life. You do not notice you are bargaining with a system that will always offer the next upgrade. Then you look up 2 years later, you have a decent phone, a couple social media trips, and a savings account that looks like a joke. You didn't lose everything. You didn't get robbed. You simply spent the future in installments. Your life looks fine on the outside. Inside, you are quietly trapped. The most dangerous part is this. You will call it a lifestyle, not a strategy. You will call it self-care, not financial leakage. You will call it living, not compliance. And compliance is what the system wants. When consumerism fails to fully control you, it escalates. It does not give up. It adds a second trap with a more respectable name. The second trap is the upgrade treadmill. This one wears a clean suit. It sounds responsible. It pretends to be about improving your quality of life. It wraps itself in phrases like investing in yourself and secure your future. It pushes you to treat debt like a tool instead of a cage. Here is how the treadmill works in psychology. Every time you accumulate a little, you become excited. You feel a spark. Then the system offers you a new ceiling of status. It tells you your progress is incomplete unless you buy the next symbol. You get 35 million in savings, and suddenly you need a better phone. You get 350 million, and suddenly you need a car, because it will change how people view you. You hit a few billion, and then comes the grand finale. Buy a house, because anchor di me lakniep, because this is real stability, because renting is throwing money away. It sounds wise, it sounds adult, but let's remove the poetry. The math hides a psychological outcome. When you buy your way into security with debt, what you really purchase is obligation. You trade flexibility for scheduled captivity. A mortgage is not a home. It's a contract that turns your future labor into collateral. It's a story that says you own the asset, while the bank owns the time you have to keep paying to keep that asset from being taken back. So you are not free anymore. You are a high-status debtor. You stop quitting jobs that harm you. You stop disagreeing with managers. You stop saying no to nonsense because 3 months without income is suddenly dangerous. The fear is immediate. The consequence is not philosophical. It's procedural. A system that cannot be reasoned with will show up when you miss payments. So what happens to your identity? You become the person who must comply. You become the person who stays in a job because leaving would cost you your future. You become the person who smiles through disrespect because you are investing and responsible. You are not investing in yourself. You are investing your body into someone else's interest rate. This is the hidden truth. The treadmill doesn't stop until you are back where you started. You thought you built capital, but you upgraded consumption into a liability. Every new acquisition turns into a new chain. Now the darkest part is that you will defend the trap because it matches your cultural script. You will defend it because everyone around you celebrates it. They call you smart for taking the opportunity. They call you irresponsible for saying no. Social pressure becomes the enforcement mechanism, and when you're alone, the enforcement continues inside your own mind. You start to fear failure so much that you cannot imagine a different path. Even when you suspect the system is lying, you cling to the story because it gives you a way to avoid shame. The shame is the real prison. But there is still one more layer, and this is where the elite logic becomes undeniable. This is where the system reveals itself as a map of human roles. The third trap is the class map, the one you never learned. Robert Kiyosaki divides society into 4 groups: workers, self-employed, business owners, and investors. On paper, it's a simplified model. In real life, it's brutally accurate as a behavioral pattern. Workers exchange time for wages. They do not own systems. They own skills at best, and even that is limited because skills can be replaced. The safety depends on continuing employment. Their power depends on how easily they can be found. If they pause too long, the system becomes hungry. Self-employed workers still trade time for money, but they pretend the job belongs to them. They choose their clients, their schedules, their platforms. It feels like freedom, but if they stop working, income stops. So their freedom is temporary and emotional, not structural. Business owners create systems that hire workers and generate profits even when the owner is not working every hour. The owner uses money and time of others. That's the key. Their income is designed to keep flowing. Investors use money to create more money. They use capital as a machine. They do not need to manage operations in the same way. Their power is financial leverage. Now notice the requirement. The system needs plenty of workers. It needs people who must keep selling time. It cannot thrive if most people reach the investor stage quickly, because if enough people become capital owners, then the labor supply shrinks and the entire structure changes. So the consumer machine and the debt treadmill serve one function. They keep you in the worker bucket. You may climb socially for a while, you may improve your lifestyle temporarily, but structurally you are being guided back into wage dependence. You are being prevented from building the kind of savings that can become capital. You are being prevented from doing what primitive accumulation actually requires. Hoarding enough cash for leverage, then protecting it long enough to turn it into passive income. And here is the most humiliating part for the mind that wants to feel special. The traps are not personalized cruelty, they are standard design, they are mass-produced psychology. The elite does not need to hate you, they don't even need to know your name, they just need the environment to be optimal for extracting your future. If you fall for it, it confirms the system works. So you start working 40 years, from roughly mid-20s until mid-60s, worn into the shape of a machine. You watch others buy homes and cars. You do not understand the real mechanism behind their purchases. You think they are lucky or smart? You think you are just not there yet. Meanwhile, your savings remains tiny because your spending expands with every step of progress. You spend as fast as you earn. Then you get to retirement and discover you have not accumulated leverage. You have accumulated hours. And then the system discards you with a pension that barely makes dignity possible. So ask yourself the question you are avoiding. Are you working because you chose the work? Or are you working because you are trapped by obligations you pretended were choices? Are you moving from salary day to bill day, hoping the next month will be kinder? Are you paying debt interest with the hope that someday you will finally have enough stability to start your real plan? Are you running a hamster wheel that never reaches a destination, only a faster pace of exhaustion? If you are, then the exit is not some secret hack you search at midnight. The exit is simpler, and that is why you resisted it. The exit is saving, but not for the reason you were taught. Now we arrive at the honest solution. Saving is not a virtue, it is not a personality trait. It is a weapon against control. Saving is the act of converting your present labor into future leverage. It's not about waiting to feel rich, it's about denying the system the ability to redirect your income into someone else's assets. And saving does not mean sacrifice your happiness forever. Saving means refusing to confuse consumption with progress. Your entire culture has tried to redefine saving into something childish. Saving is framed as being afraid. Saving is framed as being stingy. Saving is framed as being behind. But the system needs you to think that way, because if you treat saving seriously, you begin to build the ability to say no. Savings buys something more valuable than money. It buys time to think. Time to think is the beginning of freedom. Without time to think, you become the person who only reacts. Reacting is what wage dependence trains you to do. You react to rent, you react to bills, you react to advertisements, you react to social pressure, you react to fear. You never pause long enough to choose. So step one in the escape plan is violent clarity with your spending. Step one is saving aggressively relative to your income, regardless of how small your starting point is. The amount doesn't have to be impressive. The discipline has to be real. You measure success by how much you keep, not by how much you earn. People with larger incomes still fail at this because they keep treating income like permission to upgrade. So you need to exit the poor mindset that grows spending every time your bank balance rises. Poor thinking sounds like this. If I earn 15 million, I must spend 16. If I receive any extra, I deserve a reward right now. If I feel behind, I must catch up by purchasing status. If I get a new phone, I'm finally safe. This mindset is not romantic. It's self-sabotage dressed as comfort. You also need to confront the social comparison machine. You must stop letting your emotions be guided by what others display. The moment you feel compelled to buy to avoid shame, you are no longer buying for yourself. You are buying for an audience that does not live inside your bank account. An audience you cannot satisfy permanently because there is always a newer, higher, flashier symbol. So every time you consider an upgrade, you ask a question that feels uncomfortable because it destroys the fantasy. Do I need this, or do they want me to need this? Every time you consider installment debt, you ask a question that feels colder than your culture allows. Am I buying an experience, or am I selling part of my future? You start small if you must, but you start with consistency. Even if you save 500,000 per month, the power is not in the amount. The power is in the habit and the mental shift. In a year, that becomes 6 million. Not enough to retire, yes, but enough to prove something to your own mind. You can control your income instead of begging your income for control. Then the psychological transition begins. When you have 50 million saved, you gain permission in your mind to refuse a boss who disrespects you. Not because you become an angry hero, but because you finally have a buffer. When you have 100 million, you can reject a project that insults your time. When you have 200 million, you can survive a pause. You gain the power to take a breath without panic. That is the first real education. Most people never reach those buffers, not because they are dumb, but because their spending is addicted. Their identity is welded to consumption. So they keep paying to keep their image intact. Your job is to cut that weld. Step two is using time to upgrade the thickness of your value. Now, saving alone does not guarantee freedom. Saving without skill becomes a pile of cash that shrinks under inflation or under pressure from your own habits. So step two is what most people avoid because it requires effort, awkward learning, and delayed gratification. The key idea is simple. Time is not equally valuable for everyone. One person's hour is worth a few tens of thousands because they perform repetitive labor at the low end of the value chain. Another person's hour is worth tens of millions because they provide high leverage. They build systems, solve hard problems, manage risk, or produce scarce expertise. Capitalism wants you to remain in the low-value tier. It wants you to compete on time instead of leverage, so you must stop competing in the easiest arena. You must move your value upward. You use the money